Established in 1994 by the government of the Bahamas, Parliamentary Channel 40 broadcasts gavel-to-gavel coverage of the proceedings of both houses of Parliament, providing up-to-date information, including live interviews and historical data on the workings of one of the most important branches of government.
Good morning, I'm Anthony Newbold. Welcome to the Parliamentary Channel's live coverage of the Senate this morning, where debate on the 2013-2014 budget will begin. Leader of government business in the Senate, the Honorable Allison Maynard Gibson. She will lead off the debate. Seconding her will be Senator the Honorable Keith Bell. We believe the leader of opposition business, the Honorable Desmond Bannister, could be next. But the plan is for debate to continue into early evening and tomorrow, with the intention being that debate in the Senate will be concluded by tomorrow evening. Again, the budget bills passed in the House of Assembly early this morning, around 3 o'clock this morning. Prime Minister Christie wrapping up, and then, of course, members of the House going through the heads. $1.4 billion in recurrent expenses, $295 million for capital expenses in this year's budget. Of course, $465 million resolution, what they call the borrowing resolution. Let's join senators, though, as they prepare for debate to begin here in the Senate on the 2013-2014 national budget.
Bind them upon your heart always. Tie them about your neck. When you walk, they will lead you. When you lie down, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will talk with you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching a light. And reproofs of discipline are the way of life, to preserve you from evil. The word of the Lord. Let us pray. We pray for our nation as we make the countdown to our 40th anniversary. We pray for peace in our land, for reduction of crime against persons, against things. Pray for our young people, for our homes. They may be schools for bringing up our children in the fear and nurture the Lord. To praise His holy name. Teach us to be honorable in our dealings, honest in our works, fear and discretion, gravity, the way we go about our businesses. Pray for our Prime Minister, for our Leader of the Opposition, for all members of upper and lower houses of Parliament, for our Governor General and his family, for our civil servants, those who keep the country running, for our justices and magistrates, all servants of the courts, those who protect us, our police force, our defense force. Pray for our schools, our teachers, our administrators, and our children. Give them vision, dream, and the work to bring about that which is best in their lives, that which is appropriate and necessary and essential for nation building, peace, prosperity in our Commonwealth. O God, the Father of all nations, pray you will inspire the people of our Bahamas land with the spirit of justice, truth, love, and concord. In all our dealings with one another, we may show forth our unity in you, for the sake of your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God forever and ever. Amen. Merciful God, to you we commend ourselves and all who need your help and correction. If there's hatred, give love. If there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's sadness, joy. Where there's darkness, light. Grant that we may not seek so much to be consoled as to console, to understand or to understand or to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardon that we are pardoned. It's in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the great shepherd of the sheep, and through the blood of the everlasting covenant, make you perfect in every way to do his will, working in you that which is well pleasing in his sight, to whom be glory and dominion, this day and forevermore. Amen. Thank you.
Good morning, fellow senators, and I recognize the leader of government business in this chamber. Just before she commences, I just want to especially say this morning that don't we always feel very blessed after our chaplain has prayed for us? And I know, you know, like myself, we don't take it for granted. And I think he does give us tremendous guidance. And I'm grateful to him, and on all of our behalf, continually thank him. Madam Government Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise for two purposes, really. One is to advise Madam President, and through you, Madam President, colleagues, that the leader on the other side and I have had a discussion, and we've agreed that at the appropriate time, which will be just after the first reading on the agenda, we will invoke Rule 58, which would enable us, Madam President, to continue to commence the second reading of the debate today. So I just wanted to advise you of that, Madam President. Madam President, I move the approval of the minutes of the Senate for its sitting on the 15th of May, 2013.
The minutes having been circulated, it is moved that they are approved. Is there a seconder?
Second.
It is moved and seconded that the minutes of the 13th of May be adopted. As many as are in favor should say aye. Opposers nay. The ayes have it, and it is so ordered. Motion for leave of absence, leave to resign, swearing in of new senators, communication by the President, and fellow senators, on this note, it has just come to my attention that our clerk of this court, Mrs. Christina Brown, has not been doing very well. In fact, she is now recuperating from surgery, And so I am certain that I say on behalf, again, of all of us, that we prayerfully at this time remember her and wish her the most speedy recovery. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the House of Assembly.
Messages from the House of Assembly. Bahamas, number 13. Message to the Honorable the President and Honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and the representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaint the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bills and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st of July 2013 and ending 30th of June 2014. A bill for an act for the appropriation of the sum of $295,190,261 for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for capital development for the financial year ending the 30th of June 2014. A bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act. A bill for an act to amend the Real Property Tax Act. A bill for an act to amend the Business License Act. A bill for an act to amend the Customs Management Act. A bill for an act to amend the Family Islands Development Encouragement Act. A bill for an act to amend the Electricity Act. A bill for an act to amend the City of Nassau Revitalization Act. A bill for an act to amend the Insurance Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds. A bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Maritime Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds. A bill for an act to amend the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds. A bill for an act to amend the Clifton Heritage Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds. A bill for an act to amend the Bridge Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds. A bill for an act to amend the Financial Administration and Audit Act to provide for the establishment of a public procurement department within the Ministry of Finance and for connected matters. A bill for an act to amend the Savings Bank Act. A bill for an act to amend the Police Force Act. A bill for an act to amend the Firearms Act. A bill for an act to provide for the imposition and collection of excise taxes and for connected purposes. A bill for an act to make new providence for the imposition and collection of customs duties and to provide and to give effect to the harmonized system of tariff and for connected matters. House of Assembly, Nassau, 18th of June, 2013, Kendall Major, Speaker. Bahamas, number 14. Message to the Honorable the President and Honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and the representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaint the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following resolution and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, resolved that this House approves the conveyance of 1.74 acres and 1.58 acres of land on Sanford Drive by the Treasurer to the National Insurance Board. House of Assembly, Nassau, 18th of June, 2013, Kendall Major, Speaker.
It is ordered that these messages do lie on the table. Lying of documents by ministers, communication by ministers, communication by senators, questions, answers to questions, presentation of petitions, appointment of select committees, report of committees, first reading of bills.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government and of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on the revenue account for the financial year commencing the 1st of July 2013 and ending the 30th of June 2014.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st July 2013 and ending 30 June 2014 to be read the first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and it is ordered that the bill be read the first time.
A bill for an act appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st July 2013 and ending 30th June 2014.
For the first reading.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act for the appropriation of the sum of $295,190,261 for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for capital development for the financial year ending 30th June 2014.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act for the appropriation of the sum of $295,190,261 for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for capital development for the financial year ending 30 June 2014 be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye. Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that the bill be read the first time.
A bill for an act for the appropriation of the sum of $295,190,261 for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for capital development for the financial year ending 30th June 2014.
Further, first reading.
Madam President, I move the first reading of an act to amend the Real Property Tax Act.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Real Property Tax Act be read the first time. As many as are in favor should say aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that the bill be read the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Real Property Tax Act.
Further first readings.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act.
Seconded.
It's moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act be read the first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that the bill be read the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act.
Further first readings.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Business License Act.
Seconded.
It's moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Business License Act be read the first time. As many as are in favor should say aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and it's ordered that the bill be read the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Business License Act.
Further first readings.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Customs Management Act.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Customs Management Act be read the first time. As many as are in favor should say aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and it is ordered that the bill be read the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Customs Management Act.
Further first readings.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Family Islands Development Encouragement Act.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Family Islands Development Encouragement Act be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye. Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and it is ordered that the bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Family Islands Development Encouragement Act.
Further first reading.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Electricity Act.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Electricity Act be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and it is ordered that this bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Electricity Act.
Further first readings.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the City of Nassau Revitalization Act.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the City of Nassau Revitalization Act be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, ordered that this bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the City of Nassau Revitalization Act.
Further first readings.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Insurance Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Insurance Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, ordered that the bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Insurance Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds.
Further first reading.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Maritime Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Maritime Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds be read the first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and it is ordered that the bill be read the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Maritime Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds.
Further first readings.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and it is ordered that the bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds.
For the first reading.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Clifton Heritage Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Clifton Heritage Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, ordered that this bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Clifton Heritage Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds.
For the first reading.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Bridge Authority Act to provide for the payment into the Consolidated Fund of excess surplus funds.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Bridge Authority Act to provide for the payment into the consolidated fund of excess surplus funds be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and it is ordered that the bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Bridge Authority Act to provide for the payment into the consolidated fund of excess surplus funds.
For the first reading.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Savings Bank Act.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Savings Bank Act be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and it is ordered that this bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Savings Bank Act.
For the first reading.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Financial Administration and Audit Act to provide for the establishment of a public procurement department within the Ministry of Finance and for connected matters.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Financial Administration and Audit Act to provide for the establishment of a public procurement department within the Ministry of Finance and for connected matters be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that this bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Financial Administration and Audit Act to provide for the establishment of a public procurement department within the Ministry of Finance. That's so connected.
For the first reading.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Firearms Act.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Firearms Act be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that this bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Firearms Act.
For the first reading.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to amend the Police Force Act.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Police Force Act should be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that this bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Police Force Act.
For the first readings.
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to provide for the imposition and collection of excise taxes and for connected purposes.
Seconded.
It is moved and seconded that a bill for an act to provide for the imposition and collection of excise taxes and for connected purposes be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The ayes have it. Ordered that this bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to provide for the imposition and collection of excise taxes and for connected purposes.
No further first readings? Further first readings?
Madam President, I move the first reading of a bill for an act to make new provisions for the imposition and collection of customs duties and to give effect to the harmonized system of tariff and for connected purposes.
Second, Madam President.
It is moved and seconded that a bill to make new provisions for the imposition and collection of customs duties and to give effect to the harmonized system of tariffs and for connected purposes be read a first time. As many as are in favor should say aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and it is ordered that this bill be read a first time.
A bill for an act to make new provisions for the imposition and collection of customs duties and to give effect to the harmonized system of tariffs and for connected purposes.
Madam Government Leader, are there further first readings?
No further first readings, Madam President.
Then, having regard to the invoking of
So there's a motion? That was it.
Section 58, we now call for second reading and committal of bills.
Madam President, I move that the business of the House be allowed to proceed, the Senate move directly to second reading and committal pursuant to Rule 58 of the Rules of the Senate.
Madam President, we on this side do not oppose it. We consent unanimously.
You second
And I said, and in the spirit of what we seek to do, I second.
Thank you.
I thank you very much, honorable members. Then we now proceed to second reading. Yes, I must give the honorable members an opportunity to again assent to this. So, as many as are in favor to the motion at this time that we do continue with second readings, please say aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and we shall so proceed.
Madam President, just for tidying of purposes, as usual, I will move the second reading and committal of one bill, and then we will debate the entire package. And at the usual stage, we will then go through the formal procedure of the second reading and committal of all the other bills. And also, also for good order, there is a resolution, Madam President, which also requires unanimity in terms of notice. And so the appropriate stage in the agenda, and the leader on the other side and I have discussed this, we'll move that motion also to continue on, waiving the notice period, and that we will simply move to resolutions, if that's fine with you, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Government Leader.
With that then, Madam President, I move the second reading and committal of a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on the revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st July 2013 and ending on the 30th of June 2014. Madam President, may I have your permission to proceed?
Yes. Yes, Honorable Leader.
Madam President, this budget debate for the fiscal year 2013-14 takes place at a time in our nation's history when we pause to reflect on our progress as a nation over the past 40 years. As we approach our 40th year as an independent nation, I'm reminded of the significance that the number 40 represents in relation to biblical references. In the book of Numbers and Hebrews, our Lord calls 40 years a generation. In our context, the Bahamian context, we've seen so much development and progress over the past 40 years, including in the fields of education, medicine, technology, sports, culture, tourism, financial services, family life. I can't think of any arena, Madam President, where we haven't seen change and progress. This has been a remarkable journey. And as a small developing state, Madam President, and a resilient country, we continue to make our presence felt proudly on the world stage. And I can say this, Madam President, without warfare of contradiction. I just had the honor of representing our country, the Bahamas, in Geneva at the United Nations when I defended our human rights record, and I must say, Madam President, that many, many delegates were very, very surprised by the extent to which we actually do honor all of our international obligations. We have to do a better job, and many of them, but we have a noble record, Madam President, of which to be proud. And let me say, Madam President, thank you very much, Mr. Stone. It's my belief that this comes from the fact that our founding fathers have put in our Constitution an abiding respect for Christian values and the rule of law. And we know that the foundation of Christian values is respect for humans as equals. So it's second nature almost to us, really. We don't need a United Nations International Convention to remind us of the importance of respect for human rights. Madam President, I'd like to thank the Prime Minister for appointing me to act as Attorney General at this time in our nation's development. I am honored, deeply honored, and humbled to have enjoyed, Madam President, his support. I want to assure Bahamians that the Right Honorable Perry Gladstone Christie is adamant, focused about restoring to our country and making it clear to everybody that we Bahamians do have an abiding respect for Christian values and the rule of law. During this time of national reflection, we've been considering many issues of fundamental national importance. If we want an example, Madam President, we just need to look at the work of the Constitutional Commission. And by the way, if I may, with your permission, Madam President, pause to thank all of those Bahamians who are serving on the Commission and who have come to town meetings throughout the Bahamas, have given their comments, have joined the social media chat, and have so actively participated in this important exercise as we look at who are we as a people, and what does it mean? What does our genetic print almost of the nation mean, our Constitution? So, Madam President, I want to thank them, the Constitutional Commission. We've also been considering philosophical matters, such as who is a hero? What does it mean to be Bahamian? And we know that it is critically important that we uphold parents, teachers, nurses, policemen, Defense Force members, and other people who sacrificially and patriotically give to build the Bahamas. We know, Madam President, that we must be very careful about celebrating a bad boy culture. It is against this background that we've come to debate this budget, Madam President. I want to thank the Prime Minister and the Honorable Minister of State for Finance for their hard work in presenting a budget communication that is fiscally prudent, based upon a platform for strategic national development over the next few years. In fact, as the Honorable Minister of Finance stated in the budget communication, this budget is pivotal to the history of our nation. Why do I agree with that statement, Madam President? Just consider this, Madam President and colleagues. Notwithstanding the fact that the doctor, who is the leader of the opposition, admitted that he and his people put the patient in a wheelchair, that's our country, that's what he said, they left the patient in a wheelchair, a doctor. Notwithstanding that the world is slowly emerging from a recession, notwithstanding that the revenue targets as enunciated in the last budget are off, this administration, through fiscal prudence, has managed to best its projection for the GFS deficit. Now, if that's not fiscal prudence and fine management, you tell me what is. This is a pivotal budget. And Madam President, we hear as the Prime Minister said yesterday, we have to be focused on the business of our people. We hear the naysayers on the other side saying, we've done nothing, they can't do anything, and all of that. Madam President, we were elected by the Bahamian people to carry out the vision in this document. Where is a national plan? The Bahamian people understand it. This is what the Bahamian people voted for. Vision 2030. And if you want a summary of it, please remember it's in this document called a Charter for Governance.
Amen.
And, Madam President, with your permission at the end of my presentation, it is my intention to table the communication of the Right Honorable Prime Minister that very eloquently, succinctly, ably, every kind of positive adjective that I could use, Madam President, summarizes how this administration is carrying out this plan. They speak about crime and jobs, and we're not serious, Madam President, about addressing these issues. Read this document.
Right.
It's right here. In case they can't find it online, with your permission, Madam President, I intend to table it in this place, and it is possible, so that the Bahamian public know, to get it from the House of Assembly or the Senate free of charge. This is an important document for your future Bahamas. Please read it. In case you can't get it online, you can get it free. In case people don't have online access. Every Bahamian can get this document free. Madam President, in my presentation, I shall speak primarily about law and order. Madam President, in advising the Prime Minister and colleagues about what I thought should be and I'm calling them extraordinary measures that we should take in this fiscal period, to send a clear message to the world, Madam President, about our unflinching determination to break the back of crime, I consulted widely, analyzed statistics that have been gathered by the Office of the Attorney General and others, and spent many hours in prayer. I want to thank all of those who have made suggestions, and I want to thank the Prime Minister for his endorsement of the proposals that are being taken to Cabinet. I also, Madam President, want to thank the members of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition who have agreed that they should endorse these proposals. Madam President, crime is everybody's business, and it is time, the people expect it, that we all come together. This is the 40th anniversary. We're building for the next generation. We're moving into another generation, and it is time that we all come together and address this matter of critical national importance, vital national importance. Madam President, the plan that is enunciated here, and that I will speak about more for the next 12 months, is a holistic plan. It's called Project Safe Bahamas. It is one that encompasses prevention. I'm quite sure that my learned colleague, Senator Bell, will speak about that. And it is largely encapsulated in urban renewal. It is about detection and prevention. Again, Senator Bell, I'm sure, will speak about detection and prosecution. I'm sure that Senator Bell will speak about detection. I will speak about prosecution. And it is about rehabilitation, Madam President. And I'm sure Senator Bell will speak about that as well. I want to make it clear, though, Madam President, when we look at this plan, this holistic plan, no other holistic plan has ever been put forward by any administration, for the record. It is clear that the country is led by a man who believes in second chances. We want our young people to fully develop their God-given potential. Equally, though, we want them to understand that we will have a society that demonstrates, not just talk about, its abiding respect for the rule of law. We can have both. We want you to have your second chance. We're going to provide all kinds of facilities for the development of your God-given potential. And we believe that the best way to develop God-given potential is to put down parameters and to make it clear what the boundaries are when it relates to the matter of law and order. Madam President, the safety of our homes and streets is everybody's business. And as I said, we call upon Bahamians to join with us in this thrust. And we welcome the fact that the leader of the opposition in the other place yesterday, the Prime Minister indicated that he wrote to him. He wrote to the Prime Minister and indicated his willingness, his desire to participate in nation building. And that is the way it ought to be, and we welcome that. I also want to thank the Bahamas Christian Council, Civil Society Bahamas, the Bahamas Bar Council, and others with whom I've had regular meetings and will continue to have regular meetings, Madam President. They've graciously given advice and support and offered prayers. Madam President, our efforts in swift justice are making steady progress. The stakeholders continue their hard work and to communicate, cooperate, and collaborate to move matters swiftly to trial. As I previously indicated, the result of the reinstatement of swift justice, Madam President, we were able to achieve a 61% conviction rate and to bring matters swiftly to trial, ensuring that they actually came on for trial, Madam President. The result of reinstating swift justice had been sought by the previous administration. Madam President, prior to October, we found that there were many adjournments in the presentation of VBIs. It was not uncommon to have 6 or more adjournments, not uncommon. Reasons for routine adjournments included incomplete files. Further improvements were made to swift justice in October last year, which meant that files would be substantially complete before the VBI, the Voluntary Bill of Indictment, was presented. We have an analysis, Madam President, to show the result of that initiative. Madam President, our analysis shows that prior to October, it would, on an average, it would take 344 days from the date of charge to the presentation of a VBI. 344 days. That's almost a year from the date of charge to the presentation of a VBI. As I indicated, in October, we initiated a system whereby the file would be substantially complete, and by that I mean that everything that could be on the file would be on the file before a charge. So, for example, the forensics report, because that takes time before the person is arrested and charged, would not be on the file, or the pathology report, because again, that takes time. But everything else, that is the effort that we have been making. This, Madam President, shows that between October and December, when we were experiencing what I would call teething pains, growing pains, just that small effort, Madam President, we were able to bring the days from charge to presentation of the VBI down to 122 days. I won't stop there, Madam President. The evidence shows, I use the word evidence, Madam President, that from January to date, again, by the result of swift justice, the number of days from charge to the presentation of a VBI has been reduced to 74 days. Madam President, 74 days. That is a 82% reduction, and we've not stopped yet, Madam President. 82%. Madam President, I wish to thank the Swift Justice team for working so hard to achieve these goals. That is, more cases coming on for trial, the conviction rate moving in the right direction, and more VBIs being presented when scheduled. Madam President, it is clear that while progress is being made, it has not been sufficiently swift to cause Bahamians to feel a reduction in the fear of crime, or to engender confidence generally that the legal system works. So we're moving in the right direction, but people aren't feeling it swiftly enough. There are many examples of inefficiencies in the legal system, and I'm going to name a few that will illustrate, I hope, why law-abiding citizens continue to feel frustrated and call for extraordinary measures to be taken to break the back of crime. Madam President, approximately 89 trials were conducted in the criminal courts in Nassau from May 2012 to May 2013. 89. Now, Madam President, unless we make efforts to increase the number of trials that are completed, the backlog is going to continue to increase.
That's right.
Matters are now being set down for trial in 2015. It's 2013, you know. Matters are being set down right now in 2015. On June 11th, a few days ago, it is clear the murder rate is down. The evidence shows it. But we've already had 55 murders. 89 cases, 55 murders. Cases mean everything now. 55 murders, go figure, as the children say. Unfortunately, Madam President, people are taking advantage of the inefficiencies in the system. Madam President, an analysis of bails granted from January 13 to date is also instructive. Madam President, in Judge A's court, bail was granted to 12 persons charged with armed robbery or related offenses. Of those 12 bailed persons, one person, while out on bail, was charged with another. This is between January and June. Charged with another armed robbery while out on bail. In that same court, Judge A's court, 5 persons charged with murder were released on bail. Of those released while out on bail, 2 persons were subsequently charged with murder or attempted murder. Between, you remember the dates now, Madam President. In Judge B's court, bail was granted to 7 persons charged with armed robbery. Of those 7 people, 1 person while out on bail was charged with another armed robbery. In that same court, a bail was varied for someone charged with rape. The person was subsequently charged with another rape. In Justice C's court, 4 persons charged with murder and firearms offenses were released on bail. Those 4 persons were subsequently charged with the same offenses. In Justice D's court, 2 persons charged with murder and firearm offenses were released on bail. One of those persons was subsequently charged with a firearm offense. In that same court, 1 person charged with rape was released on bail, and that person subsequently committed another rape offense. These statistics, Madam President, are all for the period January to date, this year. There are many other such examples. One includes a man charged with murder that was released twice on bail and is now in the system charged with 3 murders. Released twice on bail, now charged with 3 murders. Sorry? Yes, obviously. This evidence suggests that persons released on bail, if they recommit an offense, are likely to commit the same offense. The courts appear to be a revolving door, and people feel that the system needs to be fixed.
Yes.
Now, Madam President, let me make it very clear that I am not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just giving facts. That's all I'm doing.
I can point. I point.
Crime is everybody's business. I'm going to give details, Madam President, of the extraordinary measures that the Prime Minister has announced, accepted and announced, to break the back of crime and restore law and order. I want to give a quote, Madam President, if I can have that, crave your indulgence, from the Prime Minister. I quote, "We believe that in a country as small as ours, serious crime should be tried within 12 months. Yes. And we believe that any assault or threat upon persons connected with the administration of justice, such as a judge, should be tried within 6 months. And by the way, administration of justice includes a judge, not limited to, a judge, a policeman, a prosecutor, a juror. 6 months, Madam President. We cannot have a situation where people feel that they can act with impunity and go to the very heart of the administration of justice by attacking a judge. Straight to the head of the line. 6 months trial for that person. That's what we believe.
Yes.
I continue the quote, Madam President. I repeat my government's unflinching commitment to do whatever is necessary to reduce crime, the fear of crime, and guarantee law and order in our society. To this end, before Parliament adjourns for the summer recess, listen to this now, we will bring legislation to enable the appointment of 20 Supreme Court judges. 20. Commencing September 2013, this September. For 12 months in the first instance, we will provide the resources to enable the courts to increase the number of criminal trials that can be conducted simultaneously. It is our hope, listen to this now, it is our hope that the courts will be in a position to conduct as many as 10 criminal trials at the same time. At the same time. 10 criminal trials at the same time for a year in the first instance. Initial indications are that the judiciary is prepared to initiate this measure to increase the number of criminal trials being conducted in the courts. And we believe that this will be an important tool in our crime-fighting arsenal, end quote. Now, Madam President and colleagues, you could imagine if we are able, with 10 courts, to routinely bring people to trial and consistently within 12 months. If that doesn't send an indication of how serious we are about law and order and breaking the back of crime, what does? 10 courts, 12 months, get to trial, no prayer system here. Now, Madam President, those of us who have practiced before the courts will say, well, how do we make sure that happens now? Well, we don't play games, Madam President. We can tell you how we can make sure it happens. Let me hasten to add now we are not the judiciary. So we don't implement, the judiciary implements. But we are the executive, and we are expressing our view as to what is an important crime-fighting tool, a deterrent to crime, an indication that we in this country believe in have an abiding respect for the rule of law. And we want to make it clear. So, how will we support that thrust, Madam President? First of all, we will do it by supporting the operational efficiency of those 10 courts. We will accelerate the implementation of integrated justice. I have spoken about integrated justice in this place before, Madam President, but let me repeat that primarily it is a calendaring system that will prevent duplication of bookings in the entire court system. Notwithstanding, those of you who are, every Bahamian knows it, but especially those who practice before the courts. And Madam President, you would have experienced this in a prior life. Notwithstanding the best efforts, double bookings continue to occur. And they are used to play the system.
Right.
Integrated justice will enable any judge seeking to set the matter down, to see the entire system all at once. It will not allow double booking. So, if lawyer X is booked in another court at the same time as the judge wishes to set a matter down for trial, the system just won't allow it. So several choices will have to be made. The lawyer may have to pass the brief to another lawyer. He may have to pass it to another person in his firm. Or the judge may appoint someone on a crown brief or a public defender. I want to make it clear that the Inter-American Development Bank is assisting us with the implementation of integrated justice, and IBM is a significant partner. We are also, Madam President, continuing, going to support the appointment of 6 public defenders. The criminal defense bar is not as extensive as we might wish. A few weeks ago, Madam President, a particular lawyer had 2 matters in that lawyer's calendar before the Supreme Court and another matter before the Court of Appeal in the same week. So even though persons might be surprised, Madam President, that lawyers who control their own calendars will double and triple book, it's not unusual for this to happen. They do, lawyers do, double and triple book. Some people consider this an abuse, Madam President. Whatever else you might think it is, it certainly wastes precious court time and it increases backlog. A paper is before Cabinet, as the Prime Minister announced, or will be before Cabinet, for its consideration to subvent the Eugene DePuge Law School for the appointment of 6 public defenders. These persons, together with the utilization of the Crown Brief system, will enhance the number of persons available to act for accused persons in the event that the accused person cannot easily, for whatever reason, get someone from the private bar or the lawyer from the private bar that the person wishes to have has persistent scheduling conflicts. Continuing, we will provide the court with the necessary support to have an effective jury selection process. Recently, Madam President, we had the unsatisfactory circumstance whereby only 12 of a 48-member jury panel for a particular court were on the approved jury list for 2013. only 12 of 48, Madam President. A similar circumstance pertained in another court. And we at the Attorney General's office have experienced recently where a judge had to intervene to disqualify jurors who had served in a previous session. And one, it was the immediate previous session. The judge expressed concern about the growing trend of professional jurors. That's not the way the jury system is designed, Madam President. We, at the Office of the Attorney General, have issued complaints to the police of juror intimidation. So, we will make it easier for a person to serve on juries. For example, we have asked the relevant authorities to determine how we might make it easier for jurors to have reserved parking downtown. We also encourage and we will support the selection of family island persons who are willing to serve on jury panels in the Supreme Court in Nassau. They're Bahamian. Why not, Madam President? I want to emphasize, Madam President, and colleagues, and to the Bahamian public generally, 10 courts sitting at the same time will require consistently 10 jury panels. So we call upon Bahamians to do their civic duty of serving on juries. It's not possible to say, oh, we got to do something about crime, and when attempts are made now to make sure that we break the back of crime, that you say, oh, but not me, I'm not serving on a jury. We urge Bahamians, please, when called upon, do your civic duty. Crime is everybody's business. Madam President, we will address the backlog in readiness of forensic evidence. Measures are now in place, are now progressing, to ensure that when forensic evidence is required for a trial, that the relevant reports will be available in time to provide them to the defense counsel before trial, and for the reports and the relevant witnesses to be available at trial. That must happen consistently while 10 courts sit, and we're putting that in place, Madam President. We are also addressing the backlog in pathology reports, Madam President. Steps are underway to appoint sufficient forensic pathologists to enable pathology reports to be made available to defense counsel before trial, and for the reports and the witnesses to be available at trial. Again, 10 courts sitting at the same time. The pathology reports have to be available consistently so that these matters can continue, matters flow smoothly through the system. These reports must be available. We will increase the use of video link technology. I've spoken about this already, Madam President, the fact that in every building where there is the Supreme Court, there's either installed already a video link, which is the camera and all, or the capacity, sorry, not the camera, the television and camera and all of that, or the capacity and the camera and the television are on order and about to be installed. So the capacity is in every building. It is going to be in every court. The reason that it's in every building at the moment is that while we order and install, some of these are old buildings, you have to pull the wires and everything apparently. I'm not an expert, but I'm told that this is what's happening. Upgrades, exactly. It's in every building because if Judge A wishes to use video link and the video link is in Judge B's court. Judge A and B, Judge B in the same building, they can negotiate amongst themselves to just move around on a particular day. This is just a short-term measure, because we, like I said, we intend to have this facility in every court. This will, in short order, we will produce statistics, Madam President, to show how video link will decrease the timeline from charge to arraignment also. Arraignment is taking too long. We know that timeline can be reduced. BBI presented, now time for arraignment, taken too long. Before the House of Assembly, as we speak, there is a bill that will enable routine conduct by way of video link of arraignments, case management, and any other pretrial matter. Now that means that we will not have to bring, there's a remand court at Fox Hill, we will not have to bring the accused persons, not necessarily have to bring, of course this is a matter for the judge's discretion, but let's talk, I'm talking here about the ideal situation. I know that I'm not a judge. There will not need to be, the persons will not need to be brought downtown, or that day escort and the security and all of that, and the cost. The technology enables, by video link, arraignments. Prison. We will, at the remand court at Fox Hill, we will continue to use video link where leave is given to receive the testimony of witnesses. Madam President and colleagues, the cost savings resulting from video link, the time savings resulting from video link are inestimable. Yes. Inestimable. I can tell you we've had trials with persons in Alaska, various places in Europe, just to be able to have that evidence received by video link, rather than flying the person here, putting them up, room and board, having them here possibly for longer than was anticipated because the previous witnesses went on longer than expected. All of that, over. Video link enables the person from wherever they are in the world to participate in court proceedings in the Bahamas, saving considerable time and money, Madam President. Sir? For everybody, civil and criminal, absolutely. Everybody. Madam President, continuing with operational efficiency in these extraordinary measures, we will encourage strict adherence to case management rules. I repeat, Madam President, 89 trials were conducted from May to May in New Providence, in the courts in New Providence, of 5 judges in New Providence criminal courts. We believe that if all of the stakeholders in the system strictly adhere to the criminal case management rules that were promulgated by the Chief Justice, 10 criminal courts sitting concurrently at the same time will enable the trial of at least 300 and perhaps as many as 400 criminal matters. If that doesn't demonstrate from 89 now to at least 300 and possibly 400, if that doesn't demonstrate commitment to breaking the back of crime, what does? Madam President, this is not a pipe dream. These are little steps, obvious steps, administrative steps, but the facts support. An administrative step reduced by 80%, 82%, and there will be a greater reduction because we have not yet finished. The time for the presentation of a VBI from charge to the presentation. Facts. An administrative step, Madam President, with positive results. An administrative step, swift justice. resulted in more matters being regularly brought on, routinely brought on for trial, Madam President, and within the defined, for this particular graph, period, a 61% conviction rate. An administrative step, Madam President, that enables matters to be prepared properly, better prepared. Why? Because the stakeholders are talking to each other. They're collaborating and cooperating, making sure that witnesses are there, making sure the investigating detective is there, making sure the evidence is there. Now, we may think these are obvious things, but they were not happening. All that we did was put the stakeholders around the table to make sure that it happened. So all that I am saying, Madam President and Senators, if administrative steps result in these successes, can you imagine what the administrative steps taken to support 10 judges sitting at the same time will result in?
Yes.
I am looking forward, Madam President, this time next year to produce the graph of how many trials were had in our courts.
Yes.
And I pray God it will be more than 300. I'm looking forward to producing statistics to show that because we were moving matters more effectively through the system within 12 months, nobody been released on bail for murder.
That's right.
Nobody. Nobody. The law says you can't get bail for murder, no, Madam President. You know why people are getting bail for murder? Because they say that it is their, and rightly so, it is their constitutional right to be tried within a reasonable period of time. Well, Madam President and colleagues, members of the public, if 12 months with 10 people considering concurrently is not a reasonable period of time, I want some other country in the world to tell me what is.
Exactly.
Madam President, extraordinary times require extraordinary measures. If we are able to try 400 matters in a year, that would cut cases in the system by more than 50%. An aggressive approach would send a clear message that you cannot play the system in the Bahamas. Madam President, we are not alone in the belief that extraordinary measures can and do make a difference. In the United Kingdom, after the riots of 2011, extraordinary measures were put in place that resulted in 2,000 cases being tried
That's right.
with an 83% conviction rate. Now that's what I look forward to.
Yes.
An 83% conviction rate, Madam President, extraordinary measures. Madam President, we invite the cooperation of judges and defense counsel. Justice delayed is justice denied. Double booking creates backlog. We are confident that sustained prosecution of serious matters within 12 months will send a clear message of our collective determination. That means all of us in here, Madam President, and all Bahamians, our collective determination to break the back of crime once and for all. And that was a quote from the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Madam President, the face on this thrust, coming from the very top, Madam President. Madam President, when I was involved in consultation, people asked me, Attorney General, do you think that the cancellation of swift justice caused the problem that we're in today? I believe that certainly the majority of the problems can be linked to the cancellation of swift justice. I use in support the fact of the increased matters coming on for trial since the reinstatement of swift justice, the increased conviction rate, 61%, and I use for support the reinstatement of swift justice and its enhancement, an 82% reduction in the time for VBI presentation from charge to presentation of the VBI. Today, the government is demonstrating what the Prime Minister called the government's unflinching commitment, I'm quoting, unflinching commitment to do whatever is necessary to reduce crime, the fear of crime, and guarantee law and order in our society. Now, Madam President and colleagues, so that it is clearly understood, I did say in the first instance, and I want to be clear, that we have a commitment to medium and long-term effect of our strategy as well. We believe that the re-implementation of swift justice will continue to result in more cases coming on for trial, that 300 or 400, as matters that are prepared for trial in conjunction, will continue to be prepared for trial in conjunction with all of the relevant parties. And we also believe that the upwards tick in conviction rate will continue. We would like this 74-day success reduced to 30 days, Madam President. From charge to presentation of a VBI, we would like to see it reduced to 30 days. And we believe it can be done, Madam President. Judges sit at all times, ready to hear matters. Magistrates are sitting, ready to hear matters. Prosecutors are ready to present matters. So if we are preparing our files properly, as we are doing, the magistrates are sitting ready to hear a matter, why can't we present the VBI within 30 days after the person is charged? That's what we're headed for. And that's why we believe that these extraordinary measures will be successful. Achieving this timeline will minimize the need for backup trials. At the moment when a matter is set down, sometimes there are 3 or 4 backup matters. If a matter comes on, those backup matters go where? Back to someplace in the back of the line, backlog. As we maximize matters coming on for trial because they've been properly prepared and all the stakeholders are working together, we minimize backlog and backup trials. And we believe that by the end of this year, people will routinely begin to feel the effect of swift justice, combined with, of course, the extraordinary measures that are being implemented, the 10 judges sitting at the same time. In the medium term, Madam President, can you imagine the impact of now, let's fast forward 2 years. We're using integrated justice, the calendaring system. So the whole calendar, the backlog in the calendar, the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court, the magistrates, all in the system now. In the beginning, it's going to be taking pains. It's going to be successful because hopefully we will all collaborate and cooperate. But now it's all in the system. Madam President, you know what a difference that's going to make? We got to begin to work hard now because the Bahamian people deserve it. Accused persons deserve it, a reasonable period in a reasonable period of time. Victims have rights. They want to bring resolution to these matters. When your loved one has been attacked, viciously attacked, you want that resolved in 12 months at least, not 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years down the road. A loved one is dead. You've buried the person, but until you have seen the matter through trial, you can't bring closure to the matter. These are elementary things, Madam President, that are being put in place under bill in the short, medium, and long term bear fruit. Let me speak about how we're going to, the court reporting unit, and how it will impact swift justice. Delay in the production of court transcripts is an acknowledged impediment to our court system. The government's aim is to eradicate any and all impediment and inefficiency in transcribing. I announced before, Madam President, that in December 2012, the Office of the Attorney General entered into a consultancy with the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB, to address inefficiencies in the court reporting system. The result of the recommendations, the court reporting unit has been revamped. An acting director of court reporting has been appointed together with acting deputy directors. With the continued assistance of the IDB, we expect during this budget period to implement digital recording, which should significantly impact the timely production of transcripts. This is used in the UK, in New Zealand, in Australia. We intend to use digital recording combined with court reporters in our system. That is the recommendation of the IDB. We are also conducting or completing a review of a career path for court reporters, and recommendations for long overdue promotions should be effected within this budget period. In the meantime, the acting director of court reporting has been asked to aggressively manage the reporting requirements each week for each Supreme Court, hands-on. She has been also asked to closely liaise with the Court of Appeal to ensure that the magistrates' court transcripts that for upcoming appeals are available in a timely fashion. We've also implemented a system whereby photographs taken at the crime scene are downloaded onto a disk and delivered to the accused counsel when the VBI is presented. And, Madam President, we have implemented in some courts, I intend to implement in all courts, the ability to project digital images onto screens in the court. This will enable all stakeholders, especially jurors, to see the evidence clearly. So, whereas now, the picture, and it's normally about this size, that a jury has in its jury book, in its photograph album, the person may be in the box saying, well, you see this here, and the jurors are bending their neck and trying to see what the person is pointing to. There's up projected on the screen, a big screen, the photograph, so that everybody can see clearly what it is the witness is referring to. This also will save a considerable amount of time and money. No more preparing albums.
Yes, yes.
Simply put the picture up on the wall. Use technology. Not on the wall, on the screen. The TV is hanging on the wall. I'm sorry, I'm not a technical person. The point is get it done. Also, Madam President, we are going to enhance the use of our legislation, or increase the use of our legislation that enables witness anonymity. This will encourage more persons to come forward to give the police information, and more persons to be willing to report crime and testify in courts. This is currently, right now, Madam President, not known to a lot of people on our books. We want to use it more. It's especially important in a climate where persons, we have organized crime, we have gang warfare, and there's a lot of intimidation. This is just reality in the country that we live in. But persons could be able to give evidence knowing that their name, when a VBI is presented, will be redacted, or anything that could identify them will not be in the statement. and they can give evidence in court, this is in the law, where their anonymity will be maintained, we will increase the opportunity for our trials to come on with persons who have first-hand knowledge to be there giving evidence. And that's what we will enhance those measures that are currently on the books. We believe, Madam President, that everybody, every stakeholder in the system has to be accountable. The Office of the Attorney General has to be accountable. We have to pull up our socks. We know we can do better. There's plenty room for improvement. We're working hard at it. We're accountable. The police are accountable for how they use their time. If you look at the Crown Prosecution Service, we see that site, check their website out. They have everything. They put it all up there. And we look at the United States of America, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, where the judiciary itself recognizes that it too must report to the public on a regular basis for the utilization of its time. The public wants to know how many trials were conducted in a particular period, criminal and civil, how many bails were granted, how many VBIs were dealt with. That's the kind of information that in most developed countries and most democracies is readily available. And we believe that that's where we need to go, and that's where we are headed. We must head in that direction. It's the right direction to head in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Madam President, we're giving consideration, as the Prime Minister indicated, to introduce legislation that in the appropriate circumstances will allow CCTV images placing an accused person at a crime scene and the unique identifier information on an ankle bracelet that places a person at a crime scene to be admitted in evidence and to raise a rebuttable presumption that that person was actually at the crime scene. In this type of case, there will be the need for the private sector to assist and cooperate with the police in devising protocols and procedures that will in turn assist the judiciary in relation to the admissibility of this evidence.
Very critical.
In the longer term, and this is very important, this technology will minimize the need for human witnesses in many cases, thereby also reducing the problem of having to put people in witness protection
That's good machine.
and things like that, Madam President.
Yeah.
If the CCTV, the appropriate protocol has been devised now, the CCTV image places person A at the crime scene, well, the legislation is being devised to say that that evidence is admissible, and person A will now have to show that they were not at the crime scene. Or the unique identifier, every ankle bracelet has a unique identifier. If that unique identifier information places person B at the crime scene, that is admissible in evidence. And person B has the opportunity to rebut the presumption that person B was at the crime scene. This doesn't alleviate the need for the prosecution to prove their case, but as has been indicated, it assists in the administration of justice. Madam President, there are some long-term thrusts as well. One is to enhance the use of plea bargaining. We experienced recently where when a judge routinely called for other offenses against a particular accused that we were able to deal with. For example, if accused A was present before the court for a particular offense, and there were other offenses that in the system for that person, plea bargaining can enable one matter to be dealt with and thereby, with a plea bargain, dealing with all of the others as well at the same time. This assists in the administration of justice. We are going to revamp the Magistrates Court, Madam President, so that it is more akin to the courts in the UK. That is, the magistrates will be judicial officers as well as administrators. Strict adherence will be paid to case management, whether it is on the civil or the criminal side. And in the UK, they are so strict that if case management deadlines are not met, the matter simply is discharged. There's no clogging up the system with adjournments. Those deadlines are met. So the magistrate's court is the front line of justice.
Yes.
Persons will then, when they approach the court, be able to understand that they too will be able to have their matters dealt with swiftly, Madam President. Not everybody can afford a lawyer to go to the Supreme Court. And, Madam President, we will, as has been heard, implement a family court system. The Chief Justice has indicated that while we are finding space for the family court, that the committee that has given 2 reports should start writing the rules that will govern the family court. Just as a reminder, Madam President, this will enable persons who have family matters to approach a special court where their matters will be disposed of in a respectful way and also, Madam President, rapidly. It is my understanding, Madam President, that persons who may approach the court in great distress seeking a binding over order may be told, come back in 3 months. But if you are running away and you're being abused, 3 months is a bit late. Equally, Madam President, at the moment, unfortunately, family matters are tried in an adversarial manner, or dealt with in an adversarial manner, and also in the same place as criminal matters. As we talk about strengthening our family and respecting family life and family values, it seems to us, Madam President, and we agree with the family committee, the family law committee, that changing the environment and changing the approach to a more mediative approach would enhance the way that we dispose of family matters and the respect for family in the Bahamas. We also are going to, through urban renewal, Madam President, find a way to implement the long outstanding suggestion of the former Chief Justice, Sir Burton Hall, that it is time for us to establish community courts. This would mean that matters like graffiti offenses, loitering offenses, other such offenses, Madam President, will be removed from the magistrate's court and dealt with in the communities. So if my son puts graffiti on the wall, a community elder will issue out the punishment that I have to pay to remove the graffiti. This will enable my son to have a second chance, or my daughter to have a second chance, no criminal record, and really, I mean, it can be dealt with much more rapidly and go back, Madam President, to enhancing respect for elders in the community. We remember when we were growing up, elders were referred to as Mr. or Miss so-and-so, or aunt and uncle, and it is that kind of family life and community building that we wish to restore, and we believe that through urban renewal and the utilization of family courts, that can be restored.
Yes.
Madam President, I turn quickly to some other matters affecting my remit. Madam President, the Court of Appeal continues to operate with 21st century efficiency. Its website is routinely used by practitioners and those seeking information. As well as the court bookings being online, judgments are routinely posted within 24 hours of delivery. And, Madam President, a recent appeal was heard within days by the Court of Appeal and the Privy Council, Now that's not efficiency, Madam President. Days, disposed of within days by the Court of Appeal and the Privy Council. Funding has been provided for the expansion of the Court of Appeal to occupy another floor of Court and House. And, very good news, Madam President, talks are underway to enable online filing of documents in the Court of Appeal. Madam President, in this budget, provision has been made for the appointment of 14 full-time judges. The Prime Minister has indicated in his budget communication, and he indicated in his budget communication that we will be bringing, the budget planning process is an evolving process. Yes. We will be bringing back more revenue measures, and as we evolve during the year, we will be bringing back measures for more expenditure as well. Yes. And we, as he indicated yesterday in the other place, we will have before the legislature, before the summer recess, a plan for Cabinet's consideration and the legislature's approval and consideration, the appointment of 20 judges. Madam President, a contract has already been awarded for the completion of Ansbacher House, and we will have to embark upon extensive repair of the Supreme Court building due to the recent heavy rains that caused significant destruction. The Ministry of Works is presently acting on this matter. As we expand, Madam President, to 20 courts, provision will have to be made for the 4 additional criminal courts, and the Prime Minister also indicated his hope that the delay that Bahamians are experiencing in civil matters, we know that, Madam President, on the civil side of the court, my colleague, the Minister of State for Legal Affairs, indicated that some judges have judgments more than 2 years outstanding. In fact, some judges have judgments more than 3 years outstanding, I'm advised. Mm-hmm. So we hope that the provision of these extra judges will enable these matters to be dealt with as a matter of urgency, Madam President, and we're providing them so that we can hopefully cause as little disruption to the work of the courts as possible. Madam President, I move quickly to the Registrar General's Department, which, Madam President, is a department that I and colleagues and Bahamians, as I regard as one of, if not the, most important department in the government. Now, why do I say that, Madam President? Everybody who is born needs a birth certificate, Registrar General. Mm-hmm. Whenever someone dies, they need a death certificate, Registrar General. You get married, you need a marriage certificate. You have a piece of property, you record your conveyance. If you take any security, that security has to be recorded. If you want a business name, you want to get that name reserved. If you want to record your intellectual property, Registrar General. Just doing business, companies, formation of companies, Registrar General. So there is, I can't think of anything in daily living that really doesn't involve the Registrar General. You need a passport, you got to get a certified copy of your birth certificate to prove you're Bahamian. You just need the Registrar General's department. It's a very important department. I want to thank the Registrar, Jacinta Butler, Madam President, who has moved on to greater heights, if I may proudly say, in the Office of the Attorney General, for her many years of service, more than 20 years of service at the Registrar General's Department. At the moment, we have an acting Registrar General by the name of Deidre Maycock, and we have in Nassau. We have Mr. Ron Pinder as Deputy Registrar General here in Nassau, together with Ms. Deloise Grant, Assistant Registrar, and we have Mr. John Kemp in Freeport. Madam President, they and their team have embarked upon a project that will positively impact the ease of doing business rating in the Bahamas. That project, Madam President, involves 5 sections: in company incorporation, births and deaths, deeds and documents, maritime marriages, and intellectual property. I've spoken about these divisions, Madam President, before. I won't go into detail. I'll just say a little bit about each. I'm happy to say that on the matter of company incorporations, we have already completed all of the protocols, and right now the Department of Information Technology is in the implementation process, Madam President, of the means by which it will be possible to incorporate a company fully online from the name reservation all the way to the issuance of a certificate of incorporation. That includes payment for the formation of the company. And that's whether it is an international business company or a company formed under the Companies Act. Entirely online, Madam President. Being implemented now as we speak. Now that's not progress. I don't know what is.
Amen.
Madam President, in the area of births and deaths, we are in the process of implementing a system by which all births will be recorded at all births occurring at a hospital, namely the Princess Margaret or the Rand Memorial Hospital will be recorded there. That will make a very big difference, Madam President, and we are very happy to announce that. In relation to deeds and documents, Madam President, you will recall, Madam President, that when we had office between 2002 and 2007, we implemented a procedure whereby deeds were received and documents received in the registry, scanned, recorded, indexed, and returned within 30 days. That was a reduction from what was routine previously of up to 3 years, Madam President. We are now working on a project whereby those documents will be received, scanned, recorded, and indexed and returned within 7 days, Madam President. 7 days. We are also in the process of making our intellectual property a WIPO cruise line, and others are knocking on our door. The ability to entirely online apply for licenses and recording marriages that are conducted under the Maritime Marriages Act, that is on the high seas, entirely online. And we believe, Madam President, that at the appropriate stage, and we are looking into it, it will be possible to bring that same methodology into national marriages, Madam President, so that the application process will be an online process. These are examples, Madam President, where our registry team recognizes that when people look at the Bahamas and evaluate the ease of doing business, these are issues and areas they look at. And by the way, Madam President, as we talk about enhancing revenue measures, the private sector committee or persons who have agreed to collaborate and work closely with us in this effort have agreed that if it's possible to reliably incorporate a company online from name reservation to the issuance of certificate of incorporation, that is within 24 hours. I'm saying 24 hours, Madam President, for revenue reasons. And the private sector is on board with us on this. Entirely online means really within a matter of minutes, if I pay, I can have it done. Well, we said, if you want it right away, pay a premium. We're trying to raise revenue to pay for this. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's 24 hours, and it will be released to you in 24 hours. Reliably, Madam President. This is, we look at other jurisdictions. If you want it in 15 minutes, you pay 3x. If you want it in so many hours, you pay 2x. Or you pay x if you want it in, whatever, a day. Now, Madam President, right now, I would hazard a guess that you can't remember, and persons who are practicing, members of the bar, can't remember the last time they got a company back in 24 hours. I can't remember the last time they got a deed and document back in 7 days. If we could do that reliably in 2013, Madam President, I believe that people will pay for it. And that will be a significant revenue enhancement measure, directly, Madam President, and also indirectly, because people, it will affect our ease of doing business rating, thereby attracting more people to the Bahamas to do business. And so they will have an indirect revenue impact as well, Madam President. Madam President, I want to thank the team of the Registrar General's Department also, Madam President. In the area of drafting and law reform, that's keeping us here today, Madam President, I want to say that division has been very busy as well. The 22 acts of Parliament were passed from May to December. 5 acts were passed in 2013. 34 items of subsidiary legislation approved. There was landmark legislation, such as the Stem Cell Bill, the Homeowners Protection Act before the House of Assembly, and we are currently working on 25 bills that we hope to bring before Cabinet before the end of the 3rd quarter of this year, Madam President. So that division is very active. I also want to indicate, Madam President, that we expect that the Office of the Attorney General will be relocated to JFK Drive. Persons will remember that there was a building built by the National Insurance Building that was going to where the Ministry of Tourism was going to occupy. Work is underway right now to move the Office of the Attorney General there, Madam President. I want to say, Madam President, that my team members have been working in a very challenging environment, if I could put it politely. And so we thank them, Madam President, for their dedication, their patriotism, Madam President.
Yes.
And I want to say that relief is on the way.
Amen.
Relief is also on the way for them, Madam President, in that the Strawn Commission that has given its report in the matter of the judges' remuneration and pensions that's now before Parliament, before the House of Assembly, is in the process of preparing a report on the matter of salary, remuneration, and benefits for magistrates, members of the Industrial Tribunal, and those such as the team at the Office of the Attorney General and registrars who are impacted, remuneration and benefits for those, Madam President. JLC scales, magistrates, registrars, and members of the Industrial Tribunal. We thank them, Madam President, for their hard work. Madam President, as I wrap up, I just want to say that this budget, Madam President, is, as has been said, an extraordinary document. It's a landmark document, Madam President. During the debate over the next 2 days, you'll hear further about our crime-fighting strategy.
Oh, yes.
You'll hear about our investments in education. You'll hear about our continued investment in our children and young people, in sports, our enhanced commitment to cultural development. You will hear about revenue reforms. You heard the bills, Madam President, ex-surplus funds being sent to the consolidated fund. Our people in the acquisition of a department established for the acquisition of goods, Madam President. The people in the Ministry of Finance and all through government have been public servants, have been working very hard, Madam President, to find a way to, it's no big secret. If your funds are limited, you want to be able to continue to buy, you got to find more revenue and cut expenses, Madam President. That's what we're doing. Trying to find ways to have more revenue. You'll hear about those revenue reforms. And you'll also, Madam President, hear about the expenses that we intend to continue to cut, so that the objective that has been set in the budget communication of having our GFS deficit where it ought to be, and us heading rapidly towards a balanced budget, away from rescuing our country from the mismanagement that it suffered and cost overruns over the past 5 years is well on the way.
Amen. Recovery.
Exactly, recovery.
What of the wheelchair?
Madam President, I wish to thank the judges of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal and the Industrial Tribunal for all the work that they've been doing to indicate to support law and order in our country. I'd like to thank everybody in the public sector, my team at the Office of the Attorney General, the Registrar's Department, and the public sector generally for their hard work. The persons of the Christian Council and civil society with whom I've routinely consulted, Madam President. The Swift Justice team, Madam President. And as I wrap up and say how proud I am to be a part of a government that understands the importance of devising a strategy that people can clearly understand, see, touch, and feel,
Yes.
as is set out in the Prime Minister's communication last night. I want to say to our people, the Bahamian people, our country is in competent, capable hands, the hands of a man who every waking hour thinks about how he can make a difference
Yes.
for Bahamians and to make Bahamians' life easier and better, and to showcase our country, the Bahamas, as the best little country in the world. That man, our Prime Minister, Harry Gladstone Christie, is the right man.
Thank you, Madam Government Leader, for your contribution to the second reading of this compendium of bills, as many.
Thank you. Madam President, fellow senators, good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to rise to speak on the 2013-2014 budget and the affiliated enabling legislation with a specific emphasis on the government's crime and social agenda. I am and remain grateful to the Honorable Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Perry Gladstone Christie, for continuing to allow me to sit in these honorable chambers and serve as the Minister of State. I also remain grateful, Madam President, for having been given the opportunity to work with the Honorable Dr. Bernard Norwich, Minister of National Security. I'm glad to have him back. He is well.
Good man.
And given his unwavering commitment to the government's crime and social agenda. Madam President, this 2013-2014 budget presented pursuant to the Progressive Liberal Party's commitment to improve the quality of life of all Bahamians is a transformational one. Budgets are very important to a government agenda as they outline a government's priority and focus. As we look around the world, we see governments grappling with the issue of budgets and taxation. This is always a difficult balancing act for any administration, as the need often exceeds the fiscal capacity and resources of a country. This is true and has been true for the Bahamas for some time. Madam President, over the years, we have witnessed tremendous changes in the manner in which business is conducted and the way in which monies are earned and spent. The twin industries of the Bahamas, that is tourism and banking, have seen dramatic changes. We face competition on every side with every industry, each having implications for the industry and the tax revenue collected thereby. This budget at its core, Madam President, though limited by inherited fiscal calamities, is about the future and it is about repair. It is about streamlining processes and modernization. It is about reform and improvement. It is about building a stronger and more prosperous Bahamas. So when we look at the many areas which compete for our limited resources, Madam President, the importance of having focused, decisive leadership with a heart for all people of the Bahamas is a most important attribute. It is about the need to put people before things, to put the interests of the majority before the minority, and the burdens on those who are better able to bear them. This is not communism or socialism. It is simply an acknowledgement that all of us, as the inheritors of these isles, must contribute their share towards our common expenses. For decades, a large portion of government revenue has been sourced from import and export duties and excise tax. This system has largely been unchanged with little progress on reform. Our local experts and various international bodies have repeatedly advised us that we should move to widen our tax base through the introduction of additional forms of taxation. As we are a service-based economy, the experts saw the introduction of a value-added tax as being a natural choice, as it would add the services industry into the taxable area of our economy. This advice was given to the F&M and the PLP. However, for various reasons, the reforms stalled. This budget, Madam President, is designed to be a transitional one, pursuant to the government's white paper on the introduction of a value-added tax system. I would implore all persons listening to read the white paper, which was published in our newspapers and circulated, and join the discussion, as our reforms will transform in a fundamental way the manner in which a large portion of our future tax base becomes payable. Madam President, when I speak of the competing interests which has to be balanced, we can look at countless examples of balancing needs with physical realities. One clear example of this is the legislative provisions in the accompanying bills which exempts persons in certain circumstances for the payment of taxation. Specifically, the government has extended the exemption for first-time homeowners for a further period of 5 years to June 30th, 2018. This was proposed by and introduced under the Progressive Liberal Party in 2002. Madam President, from my experience in private practice as an attorney, this exemption, which can have a value in the tens of thousands of dollars, is critical to ensure that we reduce the cost of home ownership and acquisition. Another example, Madam President, is the continuation of the exemption for building supplies for structures on some of our least developed islands and the extension of the Nassau Revitalization Act. Of these, however, the widest impact, particularly in these hot summer days and nights, will be felt from the government's decision to grant to the Bahamas Electricity Corporation or other electricity providers approved by the minister an exemption for duty on the excise tax on its fuel. The enormous cost of fuel directly impacts the cost of electricity, which impacts all sectors of our economies and the wallets of everyone. Just last year, in an article published by the Tribune, it stated the Bahamian hotels were suffering a 24% year-over-year increase in electricity costs for January 2012. A senior industry executive yesterday warned that energy prices were the Achilles heel for the sector and wider business community, urging this nation to press the priority button in tackling this issue. Madam President, these rising electricity costs negatively impact hotels' competitiveness and reduce our overall output. This government remains committed to providing much-needed relief to our long-suffering people. We have, by this budget, Madam President, reduced the cost of the fuel presently needed to produce power. Of course, we recognize that this is alone insufficient. However, it is a start. And I am confident that the professionals at the Bahamas Electricity Corporation, along with their competent and results-driven board and executive chairman, can and will deliver lower energy costs to the Bahamian people. Madam President, long before my appointment to this place, I committed myself to serve the public interest wherever I could on behalf of the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Now recently, there has been much debate on me, whether I speak too much or don't speak enough, if I am too optimistic or too pessimistic, whether I am aiming too high or should tune my expectations down. Some have even gone so far as to express their satisfaction of me being put in my place. I'm not exactly sure where they were going with that, but I guess they will respond after this. But nonetheless, I am here. I am here. And Madam President, let me make it abundantly clear that I believe, as a matter of fact, I know I have earned my place, my right to adopt and speak on whatever position that I choose when it comes to dealing with how we ought to deal with this nation's crime challenges. And I beg your indulgence, Madam President, because I was in the trenches. I risked life and limb. And I speak and stand on the shoulders, the broad shoulders, of all our fallen heroes, those who died in the line of duty and those who gave their lives for love of country. It is absolutely critical, Madam President, that I share these views with my Bahamian people for two reasons. First, in order that they can fully appreciate that I have what we call locus standi in law, that is a sufficient interest in such matters of national security based on my knowledge, my experience, my understanding, and my competence. And secondly, that I put my position in proper context in order that my fellow Bahamians can fully appreciate why I speak with such force, such authority, and with such passion. Madam President, I joined the police force at the tender age of 17 years. Straight out of high school, I joined the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And I joined the force in the 80s. And that was during the peak of the drug years. I could recall, Madam President, being posted to some of our keys, Norman's Key, Gorda Key, which were high drug areas, transshipment points. I could recall, Madam President, one point, having been posted on Norman's Key, that a drug plane came down with cocaine, loaded with cocaine and Colombians, and we were able to intercept them. And that night, New Providence could not send help for us right away. So we were there, pitch black, for 2 days, with a shipment of cocaine, Colombians, and arms. And it was just us, 4 officers, with our machine guns and guard. And we survived. I could recall being transferred in CID in the mid-80s, Madam President. And having been transferred in CID, I got to know a lot of senior officers, those who taught me the ropes, those who risked their lives every day. And Madam President, I believe it is important that I not only put this in context, but help people to understand that we must remember those heroes who laid down their lives. Madam President, I'm forming the basis for what I'm about to speak about, this issue of crime, where we are, how we got to be there, and what this PLP administration will do to get us out of this. Yes. I could recall, Madam President, one such hero was 462 Raymond Road. a notable police officer. As a matter of fact, he held the record in the police force for them, and I believe he's still on it today, for the number of firearm arrests. Remarkable young man. At one point, he got information. There was an armed robbery at one of the food stores a particular day, and he got information that the individuals were held up at a hotel there on Village Road. And so he took 2 other young officers there to the hotel to arrest the perpetrators. Unfortunately, the perpetrators got the upper hand on him, and they executed him right there at the hotel and tried to kill the other 2 officers. We responded very quickly under the able leadership of then Basil Dane, God rest his soul, and Superintendent Douglas Hanna, Superintendent Garth Johnson, and the others. And we were engaged in a fierce gun battle up there with a notorious criminal. When the smoke was cleared, the criminal lay dead. And that day, Madam President, to this day, I could recall having left that incident. We were taken back to CID. And Basil Dane and Garth Johnson, Arthur Yearwood, Raymond Mackey, and the others made us make a vow, a promise, that we will never allow this country, never allow criminals to bring this country to where it was then. And we ain't gonna let it happen. It will not happen under this administration. Madam President, you know, every Sunday I go to church. I sit alongside a young man whose father was a police officer too, Aaron Green. And Constable Green was killed in the line of duty as well. And each time I sit down there and I see his son, he sits in the same pew as I do, I am reminded, as a matter of fact, his aunt takes care of him, and she is an attorney in the Attorney General's office, and I wish to commend her and her family, Kayla Green Smith. And she is now the father and mother to Aaron Green's son. But Madam President, it raises the question with whether or not we as a society are taking care of the children of our fallen heroes. But let's take it further. You know, Madam President, when I indicated that I have been criticized and ostracized, particularly by one news editor, who shall be nameless. And when I resigned from the police force, Madam President, in 2008, and I'm putting this in perspective for my presentation here today, when I resigned from the police force in 2008, it wasn't that I wanted to resign, but I felt I had no choice. Because at the time, Madam President, the murder rate jumped by 18 in 2006 to 2007. So I sat through that in 2007 when the former administration became the government. I had reason to meet Pete Bell, met with the Honorable Prime Minister. And I warned the FM administration where the country was headed. I warned the government. As a matter of fact, Madam President, I went even further, you know. At the time, I was in charge of several areas in the police force. And I produced what is called a threat assessment. 2007 and beyond, a threat assessment. This book outlined, Madam President, the state of affairs of the country in 2007 and what we saw, what we were witnessing, and where we saw we were going. And in 2007, Madam President, we started to see a number of signs. The writing was on the wall. The homicide rate was going up. Witnesses were being attacked. Incidents of armed robberies were reaching significant numbers. So we saw all of this. As a matter of fact, Madam President, I have been pushed aside as well recently about criminal deportees, which is a very real problem and a challenge in our country, Madam President. And in this particular book, that I referred to the former administration with the utmost respect, I referred them to this book, and I indicated that there were in excess of 1,000 criminal deportees, persons who were being deported to this country, who we needed to monitor. They tell me that my figure was wrong. But Madam President, it is 1,080 persons who are being deported to this country in the last 10 years. But it isn't so much so the numbers to be alarmed about, Madam President. We ought to also be alarmed because these persons are among us, preying on us, bringing new types of cultures to us, unknown to us. And it is a challenge, Madam President. It is a serious challenge. And in this particular book, Madam President, let me just make reference to two particular cases. Two particular cases. In one case, an individual was deported to this country from our great brothers to the north. He was deported because he was living in the United States for a significant period of time. He became a homeless person. And one particular day, as an individual, a male was walking along the streets, he picked up a rock and beat him to death with the rock. He was charged in the United States, but he was found to be incompetent to stand trial. So what did they do with him? Put him on a plane and send him to the Bahamas. He is here in this country now. I can give you another case. A young individual, an infant, was taken to the United States of America. He was schooled in the United States of America. Upon successful completion of high school, he did what he always wanted to do, enlisted in the United States Army. He subsequently retired some 30 years later as a colonel in the United States Army. For his services, he was awarded the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. Those are awards, those are the highest awards an individual can get in the USA. Yes, Madam President. Because of immigration violations in the United States, he was deported to the Bahamas. Man trained and worked in all of the war-torn countries. Could you imagine that? So he's around here walking through. I can tell you some other horror cases that are walking around here, Madam President. So I want to put this in perspective when I talk about what's happening in the country, why we are where we are today. Madam President, I would submit that we didn't have to be here. We didn't have to be in this situation if others had only listened and had seen the warning signs that were there clear as day on the wall. Madam President, you know, I just determined that I wanted to just briefly mention that when they say dog don't bark at parkas, and I always tell my wife, you know, they're trying to shoot the messenger, but attack the message. That was my message for the individuals. Deal with the message. Let's be realistic here. But when I resigned from the police force in 2008, having tried everything I possibly could, I determined that the country was headed in the wrong direction. And unfortunately, Madam President, the statistics bore me out. I advised the government of today that the system was on the brink of collapse. You remember that? I said the criminal justice system was on the brink of collapse. As a matter of fact, one particular editor indicated they called me a chicken little at the time. Today, when I brought up the deportee situation, they called me a loose cannon. But Madam President, you know, I started to be a personal attack on my character. And you know, sometimes you have to defend yourself. You know, and I wonder whether or not she thought I was a chicken little, or she thought I was a loose cannon, when it was this same constable who came to her aid when her house was broken into. I was there. I went there. I went down the street when her neighbors was the subject of a home invasion, a notable doctor in this country. Men invaded his house in the night. I was home in my house with my family around the corner. I wasn't going to stay in there and know that a family was at risk. Here is a young doctor with a pregnant wife and a mother-in-law, an ailing mother-in-law. I went there. And I rescued that family, myself along with a team of officers. And I went down the road with another home invasion, Madam President, with another doctor. He was at work, and his wife and his children was in the house. They didn't call me a chicken little then. They didn't call me a loose cannon then. You understand my point, Madam President? I can go on and on, but I leave that there. So I'll see where they right now. You know, Madam President, even going on from there, at the time or prior to that, when we talk about this gun explosion or gun violence, Madam President, prior to this incident, or prior to 2008, I led a team under my directorship which ran an operation because we realized that the number of weapons that were coming into this country was so substantial that the number of weapons that was being seized by law enforcement was just a very, very small fraction. And so we started to recruit, we started to dig deep, we started to get intelligence. And one particular incident I decided to get personally involved in was a matter where individuals were planning to bring in high-powered weapons into this country. And Madam President, I'm going to come back at some point in my presentation this afternoon and talk more about these weapons. But in one particular operation, these guys were planning to bring AK-47s and hand grenades into this country, explosives. Now I can speak about this because the Honorable Dr. Cynthia Pratt spoke about it before, and one or two other ministers spoke about it before, so it's public knowledge.
Public record, not a public record.
Public record, thank you. And so, Madam President, we ran the operation along with our United States counterparts. We were able to intercept a number of AK-47s, hand grenades. And as a matter of fact, the information we got subsequently led to a rocket launcher headed for the Bahamas. Now, what this guy could do with a rocket launcher? But that is where we were headed. And that is what we were afraid of. And there's a whole lot more, Madam President, I can speak about. But I leave that there. But, Madam President, I just want to go back and say that it is on the shoulders of these men, that we made this vow. To thee I love my country, and we will ensure this government, this Christie-led government, we have the testicular fortitude to ensure we deal with this crime problem once and for all. And so, Madam President, I am here in this place, raised to this office by the confidence placed in me by my Prime Minister and the Progressive Liberal Party. Confidence in my ability to assist in the implementation of our national crime management agenda. I greatly value that confidence, and I work hard day and night, every day, Madam President, utilizing all my skills and talents to reduce crime for the betterment of all Bahamians and our visitors. That is the task that I have been assigned to by the Honorable Prime Minister, by Dr. Nottage, and it is the task that I have undertaken. And Madam President, let me say that in recent times there's been a lot of talks about statistics. I believe I could probably end with this before the lunch break, Madam President. There's been a lot of talk about the statistics and whether the Commission is fixing up the statistics and what's happening here and what's happening there. But the fact of the matter is, Madam President, when you want to measure, we've been asked, how do you measure your success? Well, scientifically, you have to measure it through either qualitative data or quantitative data. Statistics is a reliable source of quantitative data, Madam President, and regardless of what the naysayers may say, regardless, Madam President, the statistics show that since the Progressive Liberal Party became the government of this Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the statistics, the crimes are trending downwards. Madam President, I would wish to present those statistics for record. I'm laying them on the table.
Okay.
Good breath. We do note that this is a convenient time for the luncheon break. So I would ask that the business of this Senate be suspended until 2 p.m. I ask colleagues to note that we will return at 2 p.m. today. With your permission, of course, Madam President.
Yes. It's moved and seconded that the business of this chamber be suspended until 2 p.m. As many as are in favor should say aye. Opposed as nay. The ayes have it. We shall resume the business of this chamber at 2 p.m.
Well, that ends this morning's session here in the Senate. Debate continuing on the 2013-2014 budget, led off by Leader of Government Business in the Senate, the Honorable Allison Maynard Gibson, and she updating the country on a lot of what's happening in the Office of the Attorney General. They are thinking of moving down to the new building on JFK Drive next to the Ministry of Works. Of course, the seconder still presenting, Senator the Honorable Keith Bell. Later this afternoon, we expect to hear from Senator John Bostwick, and quite possibly the leader of opposition business in the Senate, the Honorable Desmond Bannister, and several other members of the Progressive Liberal Party government. Debate should continue until about 9, quite possibly 10 this evening, because of course the intention is to conclude this debate tomorrow evening. And so again, debate breaking for lunch. We'll be back at 2 o'clock this afternoon to continue this debate here in the Senate on the 2013-2014 budget. Until 2 o'clock, I'm Anthony Newbold. Enjoy your lunch break.